school blues guitar. It is time for the third part of my lesson, my classic lick series lesson on the playing of Eddie Taylor. And we're focusing on his shuffles in the key of A. And in this lesson, we're going to take a look at some of the licks that he uses in his solos. And these same licks can also be heard in many of his songs as fill licks and even as part of intros or end tags. So there's a lot of overlap here in these lessons. But we're going to focus here on 4 or 5 of his early songs for VJ Records in Chicago. And we're going to start out with a lick that you hear on 2 or 3 different tunes, one of his signature licks. First example that we're going to figure out is from the tune Bad Boy. And when he goes into the solo, Eddie Taylor used these double stops played over the second position bar chord in several of his songs. And he also used this lick as a fill lick. So let me play what I'm talking about here. This is the opening lick of the solo for Bad Boy. It's in the key of A, standard tuning, no capo. It goes like this. So he's doing a combination of this double stop lick and a 7th chord. So what we're doing here is I've got my first finger on the 12th fret of the first string, second finger on the 13th fret of the second string. This would be a second position A bar chord, so we're just right over the top of that. When you play this lick, you can add a little bend with your first finger. You can pick it up and down, pick it. You can do all kinds of different things with this to make it sound a little different. Right here, I think he's bending as he's picking up and down. Then he's going to this chord shape. Again, we've learned this. First finger on the 10th fret of the second string, my ring finger on the 12th fret of the first string, second finger on the 12th fret of the third string. It's an A7. Same thing, just a different chord form. So that whole opening lick to that solo, he's playing the double stop, then he goes into playing over the 4, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. A variation on that same kind of double stop lick in the solos comes from another tune called Big Town Playboy, which is another one of his signature songs. This time he's playing in the key of B, so I've got my capo on the 2nd fret. And he kicks off the solo with a similar lick, like this. So he's going from here to there. So we're starting now with my first finger on the 14th fret of the first string, and I'm bending up on the 2nd fret of the 15th fret of the second string. Sometimes he'll bend that a little more pronounced. Sometimes he'll just play it straight. Sometimes he'll do a little bit of both. So you listen to the songs and you'll see how he accents this. But for Big Town Playboy, the first solo, he's playing more of a bending. And then he's going to move that shape, 1, 2, 3, to the 9th and 10th frets, hit it, and then slide down. So we've got, and then he's going to go to the 3rd fret of the second string with the capo on, and then do this hammer-on pull-off on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So we've got this, the whole thing. Kind of cool. I hear that quick note in there, lead-in note. And he keeps that first finger, which makes it easier to control that finger on the hammer-on pull-off. Then he does it again, but this time he cuts it off a little bit and then does the slide. Now he's sliding from the 9th and 10th frets to the 11th and 12th. So we got this. And then he slides it back down. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's using that same shape that we were using here. And there you have another example of a kind of a solo lead-in phrase being played over the A or the 1. In this case it's the B, but we're still playing in the A position. In the second solo for Big Town Playboy, he does something a little different. Plays something like this. So there's a variation using the exact same positions. And he starts out, I don't know if he did this on purpose, but the first couple notes he's actually playing a step below where he should be on the 14th and 15th frets. He starts out on the 13th and the 14th. And then he moves it to the 11th and 12th. And then back. And this time he just slides it twice and then slides it back down. So Eddie Taylor, in his early recordings especially, liked to use that kind of lick. Now a fourth example actually, of the same kind of lick, a variation, comes from another tune called Looking for Trouble, or is this, let me double check it, Write 'em on Down. This is in the key of B flat, so our capo's on the 1st fret. And in the solo here, he plays something like this. Another variation on that same position. So he's starting out, we're playing over the B flat, which is, we're going to have the 1st finger on the 13th fret of the 1st string and the 2nd finger on the 14th fret, and we're just playing straight. We're not bending, we're not doing anything fancy here, just downstrokes is what I'm using. Then we're moving to the 10th and the 11th frets. Back again. Then we're just walking this position down the neck. So we're going from the 10th and 11th frets to the 9th and 10th to the 8th and 9th. And that's how he sets himself up to play over the 4 in the song. So there's 4 or 5 different licks that Eddie Taylor would use to kick off his solos. Now this lick here, he also uses that as a fill in a number of his tunes, especially in his later recordings. But in his early recordings, that was a lick that he used primarily in his solos. Another lick that Eddie Taylor used a lot over the 1 is what I call a D7th shape lick, and this is really common in electric blues, acoustic blues too. So with the capo on the 1st string, we're going to take a look at another lick from Looking for Trouble. And our 1st position B flat bar chord is going to be where it always is. And then he does this lick. Which is just a D7th shape, and since we're playing in B flat, it's going to be with my 1st finger on the 9th fret of the 2nd string, my ring finger on the 10th fret of the 1st string, and my 2nd finger on the 10th fret of the 3rd string. And all he does in the solo for Looking for Trouble, he's just going to slide this from one step below. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Before he goes in to the 4. Now in the 2nd solo, for that same tune, he does something like this to kick off the 2nd solo. So that little shift, you hear Muddy Waters and other electric bluesmen do something like that. So we're starting out in that D7th shape, and then we're going to this, which is basically an F7th shape. but it's an A7. We're using an A7 shape playing an F7. My first finger has got the second, third, and fourth strings at the 8th fret, and then my pinky's on the 9th fret of the first string, so we alternate. We can slide it, or we can just hold it still. So that lick, you hear Eddie Taylor use that quite a bit in his solo playing, especially again in his later recordings that he did in the early 70s. The I Feel So Bad album is, probably the best of his later work. So there's another idea. Now, another way that Eddie Taylor went into his solos over the one was by using a single string run. And in the tune Looking for Trouble, he does almost like a B.B. King type intro, and he starts off the solo over the B flat, first position B flat bar chord blues box with something like this. I just played that real slow to get the idea. So he's starting out on the 8th fret of the 4th string, and then climbing the 6th to the 7th on the 3rd string, 6, 8 on the 2nd string. Then he's sliding from the 8th fret of the 2nd string to the 11th fret. Sounds a lot like something you hear on an early B.B. King record, but Eddie Taylor did it too. This is from Looking for Trouble. And then from here, he does this climb in what's the second position blues box. It goes from the 9th fret to the 10th fret on the 1st string, and then 2 slides, 11 to 13 on the 1st string. Back to the 11th fret of the 1st string, and then this climb. So he's going from the 11th fret of the 2nd string, 10th fret of the 1st string, little hammer on, 10, 11, back to the 10th fret, back to the 11th fret of the 2nd string. So that whole little lick goes like this. Then he ends up playing over the 1 with this lick. Another B.B. King type thing. So it sounds to me like he's playing that climbing lick again, but instead of going to the 8th fret, he's going to the 6th fret of the 1st string, and then the 9th fret of the 2nd string. So let's play that whole phrase. Again, listen to Looking for Trouble. It's in the key of B flat. We got the capo on the 1st fret. It goes like this. And there's another kind of Eddie Taylor idea for kicking off a solo. Now we're going to take a look at some licks that he would play over the 4. So we're still in an A shuffle. We're playing a shuffle in the key of A. So when the song goes to the 4, what are you doing if you're playing a solo or trying to play some fills? Our first idea comes from the tune Bad Boy. In the first solo, he's going to do these runs over the second position blues box. So we're in A, so that's our first position blues box. We move that with our first finger on the 10th fret, and there's a second or a first position D blues box. And he does these licks like this. So we're playing these licks just right over that F-shaped D, D7th position. And he starts out with a slide from the 9th to the 11th on the 3rd string, and then the 10th fret of the 2nd string. Then you got this descending chromatic run, 12, 11, 10 on the 1st string. And then we're going to get the 13th fret of the 2nd string and bend it just a hair. Back to the 10th fret. So the whole first lick he plays is like this. Then he does it again. A little bit differently. Check the tab for this. So I'm sliding into it the same way. That part's the same, but here I'm bending 3 times and then going to the 10th fret of the 2nd string twice. So if you're listening to Bad Boy and the song goes over the 4, over the 1, right as it heads to the 4, you've got then he goes back to playing over the 1. So there's one idea, and he does a variation on this kind of thing in another position, which we'll get to here in just a minute. Another idea for playing over the 4, we're going to go back to the song Big Town Playboy in the key of B, and we're going to put the capo on the second fret. So our first position B is still where it would always be, with my first finger on the 7th fret and then my chord right there. When the song goes to the E, which is the 4, instead of playing over the E flat or the E here, like, which you could do, instead he's going to play over the 2nd position bar chord. He'll do something like this. Which is a neat idea. And this is from the 4 going back into the 1. So what he's doing here is just kind of outlining that 2nd position bar chord, sliding from the 7th to the 9th on the 2nd string, getting the 1st string on at the 7th fret, and then a quick slide back 9-7 on the 2nd string. So we got this. Actually, that lick, climbing on the 1st string from the 7th to the 9th to the 10th. And then we're going to that lick. And then we're going to go to this A position, which in this tune is a B position. And we're going from the 5th fret to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string to the 4th fret of the 3rd string. And a little hammer on there. So that whole sequence over the 4 would go something like this. So this is a typical Eddie Taylor type thing, these little quick runs. So this is over the 2nd position bar chord. We're playing over the 4 in the song, which is the E. One more time slowly. So there's another idea for playing over the 4. And you can come up with all kinds of variations. Sometimes Eddie Taylor would do something like this. You know, play that staccato picking with a hammer on or a pull-off. You know, mix it up. You can do all kinds of different things using those same notes, same positions. Example number 9. Again, we're playing over the 4. This comes from the tune Write 'Em On Down in the key of B flat, capo on the 1st fret. He's going to play these like walking double stop, descending walking double stop licks over the 4, something like this. And he goes back into the 1, which is over, you know, the B flat. So these licks are also over that 2nd position bar chord. So we're in B flat, so this is an F, and I'm using my 1st and my 2nd finger. And this makes it easier, I think. And I'm sliding from the 6th to the 8th fret and back and forth. That's on the 2nd string. Then I'm going back and forth, keeping my 1st finger on the 6th fret of the 1st string. Check the tab. Then I'm taking my ring finger to the 9th fret of the 1st string, keeping that position solid on the 1st and 2nd string. And I'm walking my ring finger from the 9th fret to the 8th fret and then off. So the whole lick goes like this. And then I can go back to this. kinds of stuff before I get back to the 5. So this little walking thing. You could also do it over the 5. So when the tune goes to the 5, you could do. Eddie Taylor does do that on some songs, especially his later stuff. So all I'm doing is moving it. So our 3-chord progression in B flat is B flat, E flat, F. So I said F there, it's actually B flat, E flat. So I could go over the F, which is our 5, over the E flat, which is our 4, and then back to the 1 and do whatever I want to do there. So that's another example. So Eddie Taylor, I think it's in Looking for Trouble, or Write 'Em On Down. He starts out the solo with this. And then when he gets to the 4, and then back to this. And continues to the 5 and finishes up the solo there. Lick number 10, we're going through quite a few of these Eddie Taylor licks here. This one is just a simple chord slide. So if we go back to the key of A, and this is something he did especially on his later recordings. When I say later recordings, I mainly mean the I Feel So Bad album, which is one of my favorites. And this, I'm pretty sure, was recorded in the early 70s. And on this album, there's songs like 13 Highway and Wreck on 83 Highway, or maybe, pretty sure those are on the same album. But he does a lot of these chord slides where when he goes over the 4, especially when he's singing, he'll play something like this. Or sometimes a whole chord. Or. So this is an idea, over the 4. So if we're playing an A and we got the shuffle, when he goes over the 4, we could play something like that. So the 2 ways I'm playing this, I'm doing it 3rd and 1st string, 6th. I'm just sliding my 2nd finger from the 5th fret to the 7th fret on the 3rd string, and then getting the 7th fret of the 1st string with my ring finger, and sliding it back. You can pick all kinds of different ways, make it sound different. The other way I'm playing it is just going from a straight D to an E, what basically is a 9th chord. So we do something like this. And then go back into the 1. So that's something you hear mainly on his later recordings. One last idea. I have this as number 11, lick number 11. This is something from his later recordings, and this is from, pretty sure, 13 Highway, and he does it in other songs too. But when he gets over the 4, he goes to the 2nd position blues box and plays something like this. He does these bends over the 2nd position blues box. So he's playing in 4, so he's going to go to the D, and there's one on 13 Highway, I think it is, or maybe Wreck on 83 Highway, where he does this. You know, different bends. And what he's basically doing is, first he's going over on the 1st string, bending the 13th fret of the 1st string. I'm using all 4 fingers. And then he's going 12, 10 on the 1st string. And then he's going to the 2nd string. And he pretty much bends it out of phase. And even though that you don't hear that on his early VJ recordings, he wasn't quite playing like that yet. This is sort of the evolution of his style. You know, if you listen to those tunes on I Feel So Bad, he uses those long bends over the 4 as part of the solos that he plays, and also the intro and the end tag on one of the songs. Just a kind of a fun Eddie Taylor idea to throw there before we go on to the last lesson. Hope this video helps you. All these different ideas, some of them are pretty common to electric blues. Maybe you already know them. But these are the licks that when you listen to Eddie Taylor's VJ recordings especially, you hear him playing on his solos and then also as fills.